Today, we're turning the punchy, fast-cooking Mapo Tofu into a savoury long braise, layering flavours along the way. We start with the choice of tofu. Firm tofu today for better absorption of flavours, given the lower water content, and for it to hold its shape better during long cooking. For even better absorption, we give it the rough treatment to increase the surface area. Today's weapon of choice, butcher's twine, but use your imagination. Now, to get rid of the raw beany taste and to squeeze out a bit of excess moisture, we have 3 options. 2 minutes in the microwave, 10 minutes in a steamer, or a quick blanch in salted water. I just want to quickly show you what we're getting rid of. Now, let's build some flavors. Dry pot, medium heat, Sichuan peppercorns in. Not just for the numb, but some citrusy, floral brightness that's often overlooked. We bring in some heat to get the essential oils going. And we grind. Perfect. Hot pan with a generous amount of high smoke point neutral oil. Mince goes in. We're using pork today for a sweeter, rounder profile. If you want a cleaner finish, use lean beef. If you want to keep it vegetarian, use mushrooms. They're amazing. Now, although tofu is high in soy protein, it lacks the reducing sugar to make it Maillard sufficient, if I may. And that's what this step is for. Through heat, we first rapidly evaporate the water content. Then, through even higher heat, we get the Maillard reaction, developing meaty, savory flavors, and at even higher heat, caramelization, giving us nutty complexity. Once you can see a bit of the golden color, the Chinese sofrito goes in. Ginger for some background warmth. Scallion white to form our savory base and provide some subtle sweetness. Now garlic, not in most older recipes, but quite common nowadays to mimic the garlic shoot garnish. In the context of a long braise, it gives us more savory depth and later caramelized sweetness. Now optional and definitely not traditional, star anise goes in. Not so much for the licorice-like notes, but to make the dish a bit meatier, a bit more complex. We'll take it out before simmering for it to not overpower the rest of our ingredients. Now the key ingredient, Sichuan fermented chili bean paste goes in. To impart its fat-soluble flavors, the heat, the fermented complexity, and of course, the famous color. At the same time, we're concentrating its water-soluble flavors, most importantly, the umami and the salt content. And speaking of salt content, we're aiming for overall 1.2% salt of the weight of our tofu. How you want to distribute the 1.2 between our seasonings is up to you. For example, if you can't handle too much heat, use more of our next ingredient, the fermented black beans. Equally umami rich, but with a bit more funk. We're using a pot today, by the way, mostly out of splashing considerations. You can use a pan if you wish. Now, chili powder to give us a bit more sharp heat and to reinforce the color. In essence, we're almost making a chili oil. Now, given we have the luxury of the long braising time, the first round of our Sichuan peppercorn goes in now. Not for the numbing, not even for the citrusy top note, but given a long cooking time, Sichuan peppercorn gives you this warm, earthy, woody note and a hint of pleasant bitterness. That's why you see it quite often in Chinese soup recipes. Now, with all that beautiful fond, first liquid seasoning, soy sauce goes in for salinity and umami. If you've maxed out your salt quota, you can go easy on this one. Next up, Shaoxing wine for even more fermented complexity and a bit of oxidized note. If you don't have Shaoxing wine, use dry sherry. Once again optional and equally not traditional, Chinese black vinegar, just a dash, but goes in early. Vinegar, unlike citrus juice, does not evaporate over long cooking. What we want is for the acid to penetrate, balancing the dish from within. What the heat will actually do is cooking off the raw edge of the vinegar. Now, tofu goes in. If you want to go the extra mile, feel free to poke a few holes. Now, just enough water to cover everything, the necessary dilution. Now, optional ingredient only if the shopping permits, so don't let this stop you. Deep fried tofu or tofu puffs. They're airy, they're porous, they're practically store-bought sponges, and precisely because they're store-bought, we blanch and bring them to a boil and let them soak in the water for about 5 minutes. Then we squeeze out the store-bought oil and make room for extremely tasty red oil. Give everything a good mix and fish out the star anise. Should have done that earlier. 45 minutes. It's a braise. Look at that. Now we tilt the pot and do something almost unthinkable. Skimming off all of the famous red oil, temporarily. First, just to appreciate what we have in the pot. Different kinds of natural umami from 3 different kinds of bean seasonings being soaked up by 2 different kinds of bean products. A celebration of the water-soluble flavors of this iconic dish. Now we celebrate the fat with control. As much or as little as you like. Gently bring back some heat to first evaporate the liquid we accidentally skimmed. Now, round 2 aromatics, this time for the vibrant flavors that wouldn't have survived the long cooking. Ginger for heat and zesty freshness. Scallion, this time for the onion-like notes. Slight delay before the garlic, this time to really preserve the pungency. That's going to lift the whole dish. Optional, round 2 chili powder for some sharper, fruitier heat. Not optional, round 2 Sichuan peppercorn, this time mostly for the citrusy top note. A drop of our braising liquid for them to gradually reconnect. And now they meet again. We taste and adjust the seasoning. Scallion green for brightness, contrasting texture and color. And of course, the very last minute, stove off, last round of Sichuan peppercorn, this time for the numb. And that's a different side of Mapo tofu.